The SANS Institute, the most trusted source for computer security certification training and research. Visit SANS.org to explore their full curriculum and latest training offerings. Gain control of cyber risk with Tenable.io, the first vulnerability management platform built for today's elastic assets like cloud, containers, and web apps. Discover a fresh, asset-based approach that prioritizes vulnerabilities while seamlessly integrating into your environment. And improve ROI with the first elastic licensing approach based on assets, not IP addresses. Tenable.io delivers the data and context you need to secure your elastic attack surface. Start your free Tenable.io trial today by visiting Tenable.io. Signal Sciences is the industry's first web protection platform that works in any cloud, any container, any platform as a service, and any modern application architecture. The Signal Sciences web protection platform can be deployed in next-generation WAF, RASP, or reverse proxy modes, giving customers ultimate flexibility and coverage. Protect your web applications with Signal Sciences web protection platform. Signal Sciences, securing code and connecting teams. For more information, check them out at signalsciences.com/ESW. Check out our fine friends over at itpro.tv, whose courses now include ITIL Managing the Lifecycle and Microsoft Hello for Business. Premium annual memberships include all video content as well as access to virtual labs and Q&A forums. You'd normally pay $85.70 a month or $857 per year. But our listeners now get 50% off a monthly membership for the lifetime of your active subscription. You can go to itpro.tv/Security Weekly and use the code SW50? SW50. It's different for each show, so I want to make sure I get it right. It is SW50.
Did you say 50%? That's
50% off, and it's awesome. We visited their studios. Don Pizzette is a frequent contributor to Hack Naked News. We've had a lot of great conversations on Hack Naked News. He's provided the expert commentary on that show, which is going fantastic. And a lot of people ask me, hey, I'm getting into the field of information security, right? Like people ask us that all the time. Like, I need some training. This is a great way. And now you can get 50% off. And it's not free, right? But it's at a discount, and their library is expansive, and there are really smart people that are delivering awesome training on that platform. Don Pizzette being one of them, who's been in the industry for a really long time. He is like one of the biggest nerds I think I know. His office was like, we spent like legit like a good half an hour or more in his office, just like geeking out.
Nice.
Like a bunch of us were standing in his office, and he has like Star Trek stuff. And the Ghostbusters 2, what's the painting in Ghostbusters 2? What's his name?
Gozer the Gozerian? No, that's
it's a Gozer.
No, it's Gozer is the guy that is
in the painting. The guy in the painting. Yeah. It's Gozer.
No, that's not Gozer. That's I know the one that you're talking about.
The painting from he has that in his office, dude. I'm just waiting for like the eyes to like. And I'm like looking at his laptop.
Vigo is Vigo the car.
Vigo, I think it's Vigo. I think you're right. And
Vigo the Carpathian, yes.
I looked at his laptop, dude. He's got like the same System 76 laptop with Ubuntu. I'm like, dude, like we should totally hang out more. Like this is great.
Yeah, Paul, that latest System 76 stuff is really pretty cool.
Now I've been looking for a new desktop system, right? As I mentioned, our staff here is growing. And I want to make some investments in some hardware. I might use it for a while and then pass it off to folks in doing production. And they need really fast systems. I always want a really fast system for obvious reasons because I'm a nerd. They'll probably take more advantage of it than I will. But like when you look, you were talking about the Apple product line. As security professionals say, when you're looking at, like if you're not MacBook Pro, like the rest of the computer line from Apple hasn't been updated in a really long time. Like, it's pitiful. I'm like, do I really want to buy a Mac? I guess I'm going to buy a Mac Pro is what I'm looking at now. But that line has been updated since like 2013 or something like that. There was a price drop, and only one of their models is available. I mean, it's still you still get like I think I got an 8-core Xeon processor.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's still going to be really fast. But I'm like, then I'm looking at System 76, Joff, back to your comment, where you can configure. They actually have a dual processor. You can get like 2 10-core Xeon processors in there.
That's
so you can get ridiculous. I mean, you can spend like up to $10,000, I think. but it's totally configurable, and it's on par with the. I mean, it's even more updated than the nice part is when you do it from System 76, you can actually like it's modular. You can actually like
swap in and out.
When you get that Mac Pro, like forget it, you're screwed.
Yep, I will say that for me that the Mac is still rocking its heart out, and I just pulled up the About This Mac, and it's I'm almost embarrassed to read this.
Early 2011 MacBook Pro.
Yeah, early 2011.
But the new MacBook Pros are, I mean, they're on par. It's modern architecture. It's just recently refreshed, so go ahead and go buy one.
Yeah,
if your iMac or your MacBook Air or your Mac Pro or what's the other little computer, Mac Mini?
Yep.
Like all those things, if you go to macrumors.com and they like give you the when to buy thing, they're like, don't buy any of the other stuff.
Yeah, no.
I'm like, but I don't want a MacBook Pro.
And you don't want, believe me, you don't want a Mac Pro. Apple just said like, hey, we screwed up. We made a bad design. Don't worry. We're working on a new design. We're going to come out with a new design next year. We didn't make them upgradable, and they actually admitted that they made those problems with the Mac Pro. So you don't want the current gen Mac Pro.
Yep.
Because then next year they're going to come out with what they're saying that they're going to fix, and you're just going to be pissed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, is it so? Are we going to see a new Mac Pro in 2018? And we're not going to see it until 2018. Some say 2019, Carlos.
Well, in my case, if I want to run VMs and I need a desktop, I bought a Supermicro server. Has 128 gigs of RAM, 6 core, and it's the size of a Mac Mini. And that's why I carry for doing training. If I want that power, I'll go outside of Apple. Yep. In the case of my MacBook 2012, it's still rocking. I have no issues with it. I don't need a new MacBook.
Same with mine, Carlos. It
depends on needs.
Yep, same with mine. And I will run up to 4 VMs at a time with this thing with 16 gigs of RAM. And it is doing everything that I need it to. Granted, I upgraded the hard drive to a 1 terabyte SSD and put a 1 terabyte spinning disk where the optical used to be. So I have more. And like, I'm spoiled with that storage space.
Yeah.
Like, try to do that. Try to do that on a new MacBook Pro. Forget it.
I was kind of fortunate by having this cocktail accident on the show.
Yeah, that's right.
Fortunate or not, you can call it what you will, but so my MacBook Pro is a mid 2014 model from that accident, I'm going to hold on to it at least until 2018, and then we'll see what happens. But I'm the same way, Larry. I've got a terabyte SSD in the thing and 16 gig of RAM, and I'm hanging in there. I can run a lot of VMs, and I can do what I need to do. So.
Oh boy! Well, in the news, what's going on with shadow brokers? Update me on the shadow broker stuff. Joff, you said you've been using some of the exploits from it.
Well, I have. I was curious, and so I looked into the exploit kit. And by the way, Carlos, we can't hear you, so check your audio. Still cannot hear you, Carlos. Anyway, I thought nothing like the present. I was working a pen test and decided to leverage some of that material, and the SMB quote-unquote 0 days, although they weren't 0 days, that's really MS17010, is actually patching some of those Samba protocol vulnerabilities. But they certainly work. They gave me a lot of leverage in a pen test this week. The DLL reflexive injection with the double pulsar exploit that runs right after Eternal Blue was very, very effective. So there's no doubt that that's legitimate stuff. And Carlos has way more information than I do because he has had to dig deeply into these things. And so I guess I should turn it over to him unless you want to take it another direction, Paul.
No, go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, that kid ruined my entire weekend.
and maybe many more yet.
Yeah. I got I was on PTO on Friday, and all of a sudden I get an alert in my feed around 7-9 a.m. about shadow brokers being popular in Twitter. I go in, I read I go, oh shit. I connected to work and then started working all weekend. All my PTO Friday, Saturday, Sunday with my team. We broke out all of the different pieces of the software everything that was exposed. What was exposed was a couple of very old Linux exploits, specifically around SendMail. I think the exploits, we matched them to CVEs from 2003. We matched other stuff to 1999. We also looked at what was for the Swift system. That there were a couple of Oracle scripts there, specifically targeting banking Swift system that are made for managing transactions and doing money transfer between accounts in different banks. That has some of the nicest Oracle you may say post-exploitation scripts that I've seen. And I remember I wrote part of the Oracle stuff that is in Metasploit. So when I was looking at that, I was kind of like, oh, I covered this, but not this. This is awesome. Oh, this is cool. So I was going through all of that Oracle code, PLSQL code for retrieving audit information. Then we look at the different Windows exploits. The Windows exploits, almost all of them were patched in MS 17.010 in the last patch Tuesday. One of the things that we noticed is that all of those payloads were actually sent to VirusTotal around February. So somebody actually had access to those payloads and they send them over to VirusTotal. Almost all of them were flagged by as being part of Stuxnet. They shared quite a bit of code, it seemed, with Stuxnet. In addition to that, almost all of them relied on SMB1. At least the SMB exploit relied on SMB1.
Yeah, that's right.
If you actually disable SMB1 in your network, which you should, Microsoft has been campaigning around this over a year now. The exploits would have worked, including one of them that actually was for SMB2. It actually leveraged an initial connection via SMB1 to set the environment as it needed, so then it could do the exploit, then connecting via SMB2. We saw some techniques, very nice techniques, specifically around command and control using SMB on implemented features of SMB in terms of fields in the protocol to communicate between the different agents. We saw that these guys, once you go in, they dump the entire audit policy and they show it to the user like, hey, dude, this stuff is enabled, so be careful what you're running.
Carlos,
and then
a couple of questions right up to this point. One, did you find any exploits? You said some of them went back for SendMail in like 99. Did you find any that were exploits that were known vulnerabilities, but there weren't really exploits like floating around in the wild for some of this stuff?
The last weekend one, the Sun RPC one, is one that we're still looking at. That one, that one I don't believe we had seen before.
Yeah, because I think it's interesting where like we'll talk as security professionals and be like, wow, that's a really bad vulnerability. But like even amongst us girls, like everyone's like, I really haven't seen an exploit for it. Like there are maybe ones that crash a system, but then we see leaks like this and we're like, wow, I guess someone did have an exploit. That's bad or good, depending on who you are.
Yeah. It was in most of the exploits of the initial dump for Linux, almost all of them we were able to match to a CVE.
Yeah. Interesting.
In the case of this one, almost everybody was freaking out because I have to say that most security researchers suck at testing stuff. Almost all, and let me explain why. Because we tend to keep unpatched VMs so we can abuse them. So when they tested all of this, the exploit's working against Windows 2012. Oh, it's working against Windows 8.1. Yeah, but they were not fully patched. So the initial day or 2 days, there were quite a bit of people just freaking out. And it wasn't that bad because Microsoft had patched it the month before. Now I believe that there were 3 exploits. I forgot their names. I don't have my notes here. My work laptop is closed. That in fact, people are now probably watching the show and they're DMing me.
Shut up, Carlos! Shut up!
Tell me that. three exploits that worked against Windows 2003 XP, and Microsoft simply said, we're not going to patch this. Those versions of Windows are not supported. We're not going to patch it.
Yeah, that's fair, really.
Yeah, and so in other words, you have to upgrade your version of Windows.
Carlos, I want to go back to SMBv1.
Yes.
Well, how easy or difficult is it, and what repercussions are there if you disable SMBv1 in your environment?
Okay. As easy as running a simple command in the command line, or even in some cases via GPO, or even through DSC, SCCM, you can disable SMB1 very easily. What will break more than likely is going to be Windows XP host and probably a couple of 2003 hosts. They're not going to be able to access some shares. And Windows 2000 hosts are not going to be able to access share. And if you have a couple of very old NAS devices and you disable it also in the client, you won't be able to access those. So in other words, if you're current for the last almost 10 years, you should be okay.
What about Windows 95 and Windows 98?
That's SMB1.
Yeah, I got you.
Well, I can't believe Paul just asked that.
But dude, there's people that still struggle with it. Like I was reading about, we were talking about LM hashes.
Yep.
And the repercussions are like anything that is Windows 95, 98. Now, does SMB, we talked about LM hashes, but SMB v1, does that impact Mac OS?
I don't believe so. At least if you're running Sierra or Capitan, I have SMB2 shares here at home, and at least Mac OS Sierra and El Capitan can access those without any problem.
So, if I recall correctly, Carlos, please correct me if I'm wrong, but SMB v1 versus v2 is basically surrounds SMB signing. Is that a correct statement?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh. SMB v2 introduces HMAC signing basically on the packets.
Yes, you can actually enable signing in the packets. In fact, that will break Responder and it will break other tools out there.
Interesting. I got to add that to my slide deck. That's why I'm asking. I'm totally trying to educate people how to secure their Windows environments against pen testers, but also attackers alike. And that
I haven't looked into this. I haven't looked into this dial, but Carlos, do you know if it's possible to run SMB v2 without signing enabled? I'm thinking it probably is.
Can you enable what?
Oh,
no, sorry. I have people from work pinging me all of a sudden.
Oh, no problem.
About what I'm talking about.
Do you know if it's possible to use SMB v2 but disable the signing?
I havenn't tried. I think you can. Signing is a different.
I think I remember seeing that somewhere documented.
I think it's optional as well. I wanted to bring it up because
I know it's
haven't actually delved into the GPOs and tried to play with the dials basically.
So you're just a pen tester that runs Responder and just is like, yeah, whatever, like, and then enable v2, whatever. Your problem.
Yeah,
I know that one that tends to break stuff that a lot of companies are doing is SMB v3 encryption. They enable SMB 3 encryption, and that breaks a ton of stuff because they enforce it. They're thinking, I'm encrypting everything, I should be secure, and all of a sudden, not everything talks SMB v3. When you look at the spec, which I sadly have had to read, SMB v3 is almost the same thing as SMB 2.0.1. The only difference between one and the other is that SMB3 adds AES encryption from where you're transferring files. That's the only difference. It enables encryption.
Carlos, since you're here, does that impact SharePoint? Like if I'm sharing all my files in SharePoint, is that like better, or is that just like a whole new set of problems?
That's another set of problems because when you're working with SharePoint, you're actually either using WebDAV or you're using a web interface to move your files over to SharePoint. It's not an SMB share.
Okay. Yep. So it eliminates the SMB problem, but introduces the SharePoint problems that people would have.
Correct.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
And one of the best things you can do is that you can actually look in your domain controllers you enable auditing on your on your net logon share, and you can all see all of your clients connecting to it, and you can see which clients are set to downgrade to SMB v1 because you're seeing that you'll be able to see a couple of connections of SMB1. You can also enable SMB auditing on shares on your file system servers just to make sure you identify all of those misconfigured clients, and then you enforce that also on the server. So that way, your clients cannot be tricked to downgrade in the case of because even though this dump is for servers, for me connected to a server and exploit it, you can also we've seen attacks where the attack has been against the client, and it's been against the client connecting to a share that is SMB v1.
That's to another client. I mean, because people do that. I mean, if you've got a network with even 10,000 users, right? 10,000 Windows systems. Someone has created a share on some system that is outside of the main file servers and could potentially introduce this problem.
Yep. Just takes one.
As Larry says, his pen tester
just
takes one.
Yep, just takes one.
Responder's awesome.
I mean, that's the but that's the net result of all of this when we're pen testing. It just takes that one legacy system, or maybe a handful of legacy systems to make the organization make a stupid decision, and we win.
Yeah, that's what I'm finding.
Well, yeah, because many people focus on, let me secure the server, and they forget that there's also a client component that you actually need to secure and configure. Because there's such a thing as a downgrade attack that will work with SMB. You can actually tell a client, nope, I'm not talking to you SMB3, I'm not talking to you SMB2, you need to talk to me SMB1. And the client will downgrade to SMB v1. And then if you're using tools like Responder or other tools out there, you're able to then reuse those packets like you want. Like, they don't have signing enabled. I'm able to downgrade them to SMB v1, or let me abuse them.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. So to take a little bit of heat off of Carlos, I wanted to point something out. If you could go back to Carlos's camera, because to me, it's very telling because Carlos has moved back into his new office, gentlemen, in the back room. If you could go back to Carlos.
Switch to Carlos.
Carlos camera.
There we go.
If you look over Carlos's left shoulder, there's this black leather sofa against a white wall with a picture hanging behind it. And that looks like every porn tryout set that I've ever seen.
Are you talking about
yes.
El Quijote?
It's the casting couch.
Yeah, the porn casting couch. And
casting couch.
We just need to add a few hot babes, and we're all squared away.
Yeah.
Microsoft has got an interesting take on two-factor authentication. So they're offering to get rid of the password and using just your phone to authenticate. But still somehow, that's not two-factor anymore. This is the Authenticator app from Microsoft. And
that's a very nice one.
So, but it is, you can use it to generate numeric authentication code, but is offering something new, getting rid of the first password and using just the phone to authenticate. With phone-based authentication enabled, after entering your Microsoft account email address, you receive an alert on your phone. From that alert, you can basically log in. No password necessary.
So it's really a single factor. They're just doing away with passwords.
Yeah.
Yep. So
not good.
That was, and so I'm going to be a little cagey about this. The two-factor thing was very much the subject of my talk at B-Sides Orlando, which they have not released the video to yet because it was very much a touchy subject for the story that I told and the way I told it. And in every one of the examples that I delivered during that presentation, some sort of multi-factor authentication could have prevented any of the things that happened.
If it was implemented correctly as well, right?
I would even argue potentially even if it was implemented incorrectly. As long as when I attempted to do a password reset to some accounts or to log into those accounts if it required some multiple factor that I didn't have access to, it would have been nothing. I would have been unable to complete.
Unless you found a way to log in that didn't require the second factor.
Correct.
That's my issue with two-factor authentication,
right?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Well, no, that's a very good point, Paul, because I've been on many a pen test where Two-factor is certainly in play, but we find that one little app that does not require two-factor, and that is the way we get the access. So you have to be very comprehensive in your implementation approach. Is the challenge, and it's not an insignificant challenge to deal with that.
And in addition to that, you also have to you have to understand how the technologies where you're using two-factor, how do they work? For example, a lot of people actually say, "Oh no, I'm using smart cards in my Windows environment." Yeah, but it's still using NTLM hash in the background, even though you're using a smart card. Same thing. Oh, I'm using Windows Hello. It's still NTLM on the other side. So if I'm able to get something to execute, I'm able to get those hashes and connect to different systems. And also you may say, well, I'm secure. Well, if I'm able to get in and you're not logging properly the information, I'm able to even capture when you're in your computer entering into the website, that second keypad, if I'm able to capture your keystrokes. The only thing I need to be is quick.
It's interesting.
And with scripting, you can be quick.
Did you guys read about this IoT worm that's basically just like turning off devices?
I saw something about that, but I didn't dive too much into it.
Apparently, it's called Harambe.
Harambe?
Harime?
Harambe?
Hajime. Hajime. I know J in Spanish is different than J in English, Carlos. I know that much.
Jaime? Oh.
Let me get the notes.
Benign worm seeks out vulnerable smart devices. Is that the ones you're looking at there, Paul?
Yeah. So apparently they basically, based on Mirai, created a worm that basically just like turns off devices and puts a message that says, like, just a white hat here securing your systems for you, which is what we speculated might happen and speculated whether that'd be a good thing or not. And the question is, how much do you trust this? If they can shut down your system and put a message on it, they can do any number of nefarious things. But Hajime,
something like that.
Hajime?
Yeah, it's not Spanish, just in case.
No, it's not.
So
that's sort of called forced upgrade time.
Well, my thoughts on this are if it's very similar to some of the stuff that Allison brought to. Yeah, is the latest podcast bash. A reboot will fix that and put it back to the vulnerable state.
Correct. Yep.
So now we're going. I understand why the white hacker did it, if it is a white hacker, but I think probably by doing a favor, he could also do quite a bit of damage.
Yeah.
Let's say these are security cameras and you disable a bunch of security cameras and then a robbery or something happens and you needed that data. Or somebody needed to look at what was going on and he was not able. Let's say this smart device by pure coincidence uses the same password as one of the others and this device is a medical device or this device is something that controls power plant, water plant, something like that, and you just caused major physical damage, either to a person or property, by just trying to be proactive and try to help out.
The other story, Network World is reporting that I believe researchers at IO Active did the Linksys research, disclosed 10 flaws in Linksys routers. And hold on here. Remote access, 7,000 routers. There are certain model numbers that they found can be vulnerable, but it extends out to a lot more models, as we've seen, because of code reuse and stuff. It also says security researchers found Windows Trojan that attempts to access routers over the LAN using default credentials, installs Mirai on them, which is kind of interesting. So Belkin, who owns Linksys now, is working on fixing the issues. Nothing really new here other than, so a total of 10 vulnerabilities, and this is from IO Active, that affect not only the EA3500, but 24 different router models from Linksys.
Yeah, I mean, it just keeps going and going, right? I mean, nothing new other than the obvious, like change your password on your device, but then the users that use these devices generally just want them to work, so they plug them in and they get online and they're happy, and
and they walk away.
and then we know what happens, right? So I don't. There's got to be a better way, and we've waxed lyrical about that in the past, but it's the sort of $50 price point problem.
Absolutely. What was the other story I said I wanted to go to? Spread the UDP packets.
I just clicked on the one about the UDP packets, and that's got the world's worst picture on that article.
Yeah, boy, that is ugly right there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is pretty heinous. That's from the register. They're not surprising.
So there's a kernel panic from sending a UDP packet. Oh, bummer.
Yeah, that happens.
That happens.
But the guy with the crazy hair and the weird eye patch and the pipe, that just brings it home. I mean,
this one
does. It brings it home for me.
Where I wanted to go from here was this article is awesome. Code sharing. Now, this is from the register, but they talk about researchers. Go read the research article that did an analysis of web application code. It basically said there's a tremendous amount of reuse in code.
Of course. And
looked at vulnerable code that's being reused and presented some examples. And one of their examples that they have in the article is it's 18 lines of code in PHP. Line 6, there's a SQL injection. And lines 11 and 12 is cross-site scripting.
Oh, my goodness.
So there's like 3 vulnerabilities in one code snippet that they analyze this type of code and figure out that it's been copied and pasted because of code. I mean, it's not so much code sharing as like
go put that as a high voted solution on Stack Exchange.
Code sharing at scale, right? Because people know how to use Google and GitHub.
So what you're saying is we could help ourselves as an industry if we promoted some code to our developer friends. Oh no, that's bad.
Put it on Stack Exchange and get a bunch of bots to vote it
this
up.
code works awesome and make it work awesome and make it super vulnerable, which is not hard to do.
Yeah, and how many lines of code was in that snippet again, Paul?
18 lines of code.
18 lines of code.
It's got to be like some record. A SQL injection and 2 different cross-site scripting attacks.
Wow, that's got to be.
I was going to say it's clearly not the code that is listed there in the picture because that's only 16 lines of code.
Yeah, further down. So they released a tool called GitHub Spider and an analytic tool called CA Detector. They examined more than 6,300 counted as popular with 10 stars, 16 with no. So they ranked them with stars and ranked how like much code was reused and all that stuff. So. I haven't delved into all of the research, but I thought it was interesting an interesting project, right? They looked at more than 64,000 web applications and wrote a tool that basically allowed them to analyze vulnerable code from GitHub, which is, I mean, it's not like a novel idea or anything, but obviously really...
And that's humiliating, I would say, for the projects.
Yeah.
It's like when I have the debate at the office and I hear somebody from PR or sales go like, "Oh, we got to cover DevOps," and go like, "It's the same stuff as regular security." No, it's not. Yes, it is. You're the way I see it is, let's look at it this way. DevOps, you're deploying containers, you're deploying VMs, you're deploying services. Infrastructure, you're deploying servers, you're deploying desktops. You need inventory. You need to know what are your assets. Cool. Same shit. Asset. What is in each one of your assets, how they're configured? Same. DevOps, infrastructure, same shit. Who has access? You need the same information on both sides. You need logs. Same information on both sides. Now, the only difference is in DevOps, you're moving faster. You're creating a lot more assets in a faster manner, and you're deploying software in a faster manner. So that's the only caveat, is the tempo at which you're doing it.
Right.
So in other words,
the how is different. The how is different.
The how is different, but the concept is the same. And the thing is that I would say amplifies the level of vulnerability and risk that you can add just by being agile and completely DevOps, because you're deploying faster. That means how is your workflow? How integrated is security into your workflow? And one of the parts that almost everybody misses is static code analysis.
Oh, yeah.
And almost nobody can, and it's so easy to get hooks. As stuff moves over to a repo, have this piece of code and your automated tests run. Hey, talk with your QA team. Make sure that they run static code analysis. Oh, we found this bug. Let's document it. Let's talk with each other. Let's have review meetings. Hey, you're having your Scrum meeting. Add that to your freaking Scrum meeting that you're going to review that, and you're going to add the lessons learned to your automated scanning and testing of the tools. And it's the same stuff, but nobody does it. Because I hear many people say, oh, no, it's open source, more secure. Oh, no, it's agile and it's more secure. I'm still wrapping my head around that one. How can agile be more secure? They say, no, but we can fix it faster. And go like, no, but you can screw up faster also.
I have Carlos, you just said something. I have a real problem with that statement. It's open source and it's more secure.
Yeah.
That is a huge assumption that there's a lot of people analyzing the code, and the fact is there's not.
We just covered this a couple months ago. There's been code that was been available that's open source that no one had looked at and found bugs that went back to 1999 or something like this. It was fairly recent.
Yeah.
And this is open source code that everybody's looking at because clearly it's more secure.
No.
It's
only
a
secure
fallacy.
if people look
It's a
at
fallacy.
it. And the right
It's a
people
fallacy.
look at it in the right context.
Right.
Just look at JavaScript and NPM for Node. How many freaking JavaScript frameworks and tools and libraries are out there that somebody wrote, just published it? Oh, this is useful for somebody, and it had errors, or it was using regex and then sending it to a shell, and somebody just simply forgot to update it and even forgot that they even submitted it to the repo.
Well,
and
yeah.
everybody's using it.
Raise your hand if you found bugs in open source code that you've used. That's like everyone, right?
Just a couple weeks ago, and it was like stupid stuff.
A couple weeks ago, I found
hex to ASCII conversion.
Yeah.
And you convert back to ASCII and hex, and it's not the same. Like, how does this work?
I was like, that
or not work.
I'm like, that doesn't work with that use. I'm like, I need to just make a slight change here. Oh, I'm like, no, but it's the same thing. We talk about bugs or security, it's the same thing.
It just rubs me the wrong way, when people say, oh, it's open source, so it's more secure.
And not only that, a lot of developers actually don't care if they have vulnerabilities or not, which is astonishing to me. My only CVE is for a piece of for our two vulnerabilities for a piece of software that gets embedded into by many vendors out there for storage devices, and I remember reporting it, and they never patched it. To this day, I can still use the default credentials that I found 6 years ago in some of these storage devices I'm able to get in. And there's a CVE and everything for it, and the vendors never some vendors patched it, others didn't, and it's for an OEM piece of software.
Wow.
This problem's so bad. This is how bad this problem is. There are vendors that exist today, who I won't name on this show, we name on the other show, but their whole goal in life is you buy them, and you pay per line of code typically, and they will go find all of the vulnerabilities in the open source software that you've included in all of your regular software. The funny part is, it actually makes sense. If you've got a couple of million lines of code, yeah, you would pay someone money to go weed out the open source vulnerability, especially if software was like your thing, that's what you were selling. I totally pay a vendor to go do that. That's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
I can mention you 3 of them because I'm constantly getting their emails. Carlos, we see that in LinkedIn you have a research position and you're a manager. Would you be interested in our products? How many open source libraries are you using? Do you want us to find all vulnerable open source libraries that you may be using?
Yes.
I get those emails constantly.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad idea, to be honest with you.
Oh, no, it's a good one. It's a good one.
No, I think it's a good idea. I mean, the more people actually jumping in and trying to at least help. I mean, yeah, it's a business. I understand they're going to make money out of it, but that's not a bad idea. Somebody's got to do it. I mean, it's clearly the open source community is not doing it,
right,
which is the purported myth. So
no, and you know what I find funny now that we're talking open source is a bit of a different subject. Have you guys seen that people are taking the Shadow Brokers Fuzzy Bunch framework and they are already expanding it, and they're making and they're putting in
that's awesome.
GitHub, and they're writing new Python tools and PostX because it is like Meterpreter. Some of the payloads it actually have a registry library, event log library, WMI library, and the only thing they're doing is they adding more post exploitation stuff to it to leverage those payloads.
That's awesome.
That is pretty funny.
Larry, you had some stories there.
Yeah, what did I have in there? There was some Shadow Brokers things. It says student for missiles, which wasn't. But I should fucking spell check. But my comment was Stuxnet for missiles, in that North Korea has allegedly had a missile launch failure happen, and some of the speculation there was that the U.S. has infiltrated their missile production facilities and such with, quote, Stuxnet-like code to make them fail, which is allegedly setting back their program, their ballistic program, by many years. Because all it takes really is one failure, and now once they have a failure, they have to go back and do all of this analytics to figure out what failed. And if they can, if failures can be injected based on, some of the same concepts that they had around, Stuxnet, that they're effectively delaying their development of the missile technology. And
well, in much like United Airlines and much like Aaron Hernandez, it really just means there's more memes. And did you see the one? Kim Jong-un's got the binoculars, and he's picking up the binoculars, and he's looking, and then they cut to a Roadrunner cartoon where the rocket goes up and just immediately goes down and crashes and explodes, and then cuts back to him
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I have my own theory on it. For example, probably don't have access to it, and we're just putting out there the rumor.
Yeah.
Knowing how crazy this kid is, he's probably looking at anybody that looks suspicious that may have introduced something. He's going to have shot. They're going to lose a lot of time interviewing everybody. It is going to be even a more of a morale killer among his team just by putting this information out there. Yes, we did.
Warfare campaign.
Yeah, even if it's true or not, you're right, Carlos. It's disruptive.
Yep, and then even if it is, and if it isn't true, they're still, now that it's out there, they're going to go back and they're going to look at all the possible vectors to potentially even slow some of that down and put development on hold potentially.
Then again, it's Korea. How many IPs can you reach from here to North Korea? They're not that many.
Well, that's also the thing. If you think about traditionally how Stuxnet happened, it was not necessarily about the network-based attacks, because many of those networks were separated by an air gap.
Yeah, it was actually suppliers. Yep.
Yeah, we know the air gaps or something else. Yeah.
Kim Setter has a great book called 0 Day.
Yep.
On Stuxnet. That book is a must-read. I really, really love that book.
Just finished it.
Yep.
Kim, what was that author?
Kim Zetter.
Yeah.
Zeter. Yep, and it's a countdown to 0 Day. And the one that I read right before that was The History of Cyber War. What was that?
Haven't read that one.
iTunes. Let me see here. Sorry, I have an old slow machine. Let's see. Audiobooks. It was
Dark Territory?
Yes. It was
Kaplan.
Fred Kaplan's Dark Territory, The History of Cyber War. That was also very good. That's the one that Jeff Mann's in.
Oh, okay.
I have so many Audible books.
Yeah.
The FBI says it can finally find hackers who don't smoke weed.
Where did they find those?
This is just
shit.
That's just laughable.
I just think this is a story from The Onion. Well, it's from the Register, I think, which is pretty close.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's from Motherboard, which actually can have some very reputable journalism. But you just read this article and you're like, this just reads like. When asked about the anti-weed hiring policy this week, an FBI spokesperson told Motherboard via email that the FBI will continue to have high hiring standards, which include a complete background investigation and drug test. That's just
that is
so they're not.
We have high standards.
They're not hiring anybody out of the state of Washington or Colorado, apparently.
Dude, and I remember here locally they had a cyber position open, and I applied to it, and I didn't make it past the the initial filtering of my resume. They go like, sorry, you don't meet the requirements for the position. I went, why? You don't have a college degree. I go like, yeah, but I have all of this experience. Dude, if you would have at least has one, even in arts, in interpretive arts and something, any degree, we would have hired you. You have a great resume. And they still, I couldn't even get the first interview.
Oh, what?
That's ridiculous. Did you have THC in your system in the last 3 years? Legal or otherwise, is what it says in the article.
Well, hang on. Wait a minute. Legal or otherwise? I mean, what's that got to do with your blood content of THC?
If you were in Colorado and used marijuana legally,
or state of Washington,
or state of Washington, or Massachusetts now, I think is also
they're working on it.
It's like a weird one, but yeah. So like, if you did it legally, you're still disqualified, whether you were doing it legally or illegally.
Well, it's just weird the way you said it, because what's in your bloodstream has nothing to do with the law, right?
Hey, and I quote, they have high standards.
Yeah.
I'm not making this up. Oh my God. High standards.
That's crazy.
Bring out the Vuvuzela right now. So what else we got, Paul?
I know there's all kinds of hilarity in that article. Go read it.
I was about to put it a different way. Are we done yet?
A really cool attack on Chrome, Firefox, and Opera. If you typed in a URL that was a domain name, but it was decoded to say apple.com. I don't know if it was. It looks like malicious register, underlying, blah, blah, blah.
The Unicode one?
A Unicode. I was ASCII character. So alternative format for your Punycode makes it possible to register domain names with foreign characters. And it works out that the ASCII characters matched apple.com. So when you put it in your URL bar in a browser, it would read apple.com, but really it was xn-80ak6aa92e.com.
Ooh,
nice.
Yeah, that looked similar and stuff. Yep. I saw that, and then a lot of people were saying, "Oh no, disable Unicode in browsers," and all of a sudden, multinational companies that needed to do business with Brazil and other companies, I cannot get to the websites. Yeah, dumbass, you disable Unicode.
Right.
Well, that actually opens up a whole avenue of interesting domain squatting for pen testers.
Mm-hmm.
That I think many of us are guilty of with social engineering attacks, but most of us sort of stick to ASCII. Or maybe I'm just one of the minority that does. But let's think bigger, think broader, right?
Yeah.
It was fixed in browser updates.
Oh.
Chrome 58. Firefox users can do some config. Probably comes with warnings, as Carlos mentioned. The last story I had here was the attacking the SIM. There was a presentation at Infiltrate in Miami where someone talked about how attacking the SIM can be really awesome when it comes to doing pen testing and attacks, stating that people don't upgrade their SIM because it works and they don't want to touch it because their systems are so complex they could break stuff.
Like Oracle and SAP?
Like, very similar to Oracle and SAP. Absolutely.
So the SIM has become a special snowflake.
Yep.
That thou shalt not disturb.
Yeah. Oh, dude, my favorite is when I talk with people and we're talking about reporting on vulnerabilities and they tell me, oh, no, I have a couple of very nice macros for it. I've heard that now 4 times so far and go like, macros? Yeah, I have a bunch of macros. One of them actually showed me his Excel spreadsheet and all of the macros he written, and he was so proud of it. And we're like, macros.
Macros.
Yeah.
Well, that note, we will actually transition into a fantastic interview with none other than Phil Zimmerman. This is a pre-recorded interview, as you'll notice, because I'm wearing a different shirt. We did it before I spilled the stuff on my shirt. But Phil comes on to talk about PGP, his work in voice over IP encryption, some of his thoughts on privacy, his work at Silent Circle, and while he's still at Silent Circle, he is focusing on some teaching and some other efforts. And Jeff Mann was here for that interview. Joff was, and Jack Daniel as well.
I was.
And everyone asked him awesome cryptography questions that go a lot of times beyond my ability to ask cryptography questions. So I want to thank all of our Security Weekly members who made for an awesome interview with Phil. So that interview is coming up next.
And I was wearing a different shirt.